Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
Well, we're zooming right back into our favorite Zoom boomers, I should say, down into Charlestown Senior Center, just ahead of their weekly Thursday, what do you call it? Your current events?
Current events meeting, yes.
Current events group meeting. Bill Isabella, welcome back. You're our anchor down there. Who do you have with us today?
Well, to my immediate left is Louise Weaver, the lovely Louise Weaver. And to her left is, of course, Jack Nelson, who maybe not quite as lovely, but a nice man nevertheless. So we're happy to have everybody with us here today.
Definitely not quite as lovely, Louise. And Jack, welcome to In the Dugout.
Thank you.
All right, so you guys have been talking about school choice a little bit, and
Yep.
Bill, what's the topic we're going to be discussing today?
Well, last week we viewed a video from the Iowa governor. Iowa passed a school choice bill requiring the state to pay for a student's private school tuition. While it seems like a very good idea, but the fact of the matter is it can be good, it can be not so good. And in my opinion, and I think some of the people share that opinion with me, is this the way that we should be on the path to fixing the public school system, to getting better curriculum, to getting better students? I'm not quite sure it is. I think we're punishing the public school system by taking funding and students out of the system. And then there are a number of ramifications which we can get into as we discuss the topic further.
Now, Louise, what if I were to tell you, now, first of all, just quickly, Louise, I'm going to ask you a more open-ended question. Do you agree with Bill's premise there?
I'm leaning towards liking the plan of.
All right. How about
having
you?
money.
How about you,
Jack.
Jack?
I grew up with that system where I was in a school system or town that we could go to any school we wanted to. The town would pay the whole thing.
I did
Yeah.
too.
So I kind of
Probably
I
a
think-
pretty rural area, I would guess then.
Yeah, right. Yeah, northern Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, Vermont has basically because there's just not enough schools in close proximity.
Right.
So
Yeah,
so
the town
they
didn't
kind of
even
have a school choice. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
the town didn't even have a school, so we could go. There was a private school in the area, and there was a trade school in the area. So we had our choice. Actually, we go to anywhere we wanted to. They would pay for it.
all right, so let me bring up the financial thing and Bill's comment on punishing public schools, because that's the line put out by the teachers unions, that why would you punish public schools and public school students? And we, as you may know, we've done a lot of study. We authored a school choice bill 8-9 years ago. We did detailed economic studies. What if I were to tell you, Bill, that because only roughly 50% of whatever the normal spend is on a child, let's just put it at a round number, $20,000 per student, that no more than 50% of that would be used for private tuition purposes under this plan, and that the money left over in the school district, there would be more money per pupil available in the school district after school choice than before, because you're only unlike a charter school where you're sending virtually 90 to 95% of the funds to the charter school. Under most of these educational scholarship accounts, only about 50% of the funds follow the student to a private school. Would that make a difference in your thinking, Bill?
Probably not, because I think the basic premise of throwing more money at least a better education is false. We've continued to do that over the years. We've raised the amount of cost per student in this state substantially over the years, and we end up with lower performing students. So I don't believe.
All right, Louise, so I'm going to have you educate Bill and follow up on this one. There is no new money. It's using the same money that's out
Same
there.
money,
It's just
right.
reallocating money, certain money from that was designated for that student now goes to a private school. Louise, I think it makes great financial sense. What do you want to tell Bill about that?
Well, I had to do a lot of research on this, and I think the money following the children does work out, because if we're allocated a certain amount of money to each student, the money is there wherever you use it. And I think it can best be used for the child to best educate them in the manner of being a good citizen down the line. That's how I see
Jack,
that.
Jack, sort of to build on Louise's point there, thinking of it from a community point of view, from a taxpayer point of view, here's the fundamental question we had to tackle. Does it matter who or what system educates the child, public or private? Or does it matter that children from your community are properly educated? There's two ways to look at that, right? You know, some people say, oh my goodness, how could we use public funds for private schools? Well, we use public funds for private medicine and all kinds of other things. So does it matter that public funds stay in public schools, or does it matter that a community's children get educated one way or another?
Well, I hate to disagree with Bill, but of course, I grew up in a system where I could go anywhere I wanted to. I made a mistake that we had 3 different schools in that town, and we could have gone any of them. So I think it's the best for one of the children, whatever is best for the child. And I don't care about the tax part of it. I think the kids' well-being should be the main thing, not the tax thing.
All right, Bill, one of your notes to us talks about a right, a guaranteed right in the Constitution, and you're right, there is none. Although a lot of people in Rhode Island want to have a constitutional amendment to guarantee every student gets a proper education. However, just like you said, they want the remedy. If a family can prove that their child is not receiving an education, a right education in their district, they can sue, and the remedy is throwing more money in the district. I would propose, and so that's why I'm against that version of a constitutional amendment. I would say the proper remedy be, hey, if you can prove your kid's not getting a good education, let's say in South Kingstown, well, then we'll give you half that student's allocated money, let them go to any school. You can escape the system, you know, kind of says. How would you feel about that, Bill, and the larger issue of a constitutional right?
Again, I think it's a mistake to be forcing, taking money out of the public school system. Now, you made a point earlier about leaving the money, half the money within the school district or the school system. I think that's a red herring, to be perfectly honest with you, because they're just going to spend more money willy-nilly and not necessarily give us a better student. I think we need to look at this more globally. And I think public education, I think the best education should come from the public. This way, you and I, all of us, whether I have a child in school or not, we have a hand in what is being taught to our children and so forth. But I think the way we're going at this now, by just following the money, is a big mistake. And I think it's going to harm the students.
Too much money. Louise, let me put it to you this way. Let's all go back to our younger days when we were parents of school-age kids, okay? I assume you were a parent of school-age children at some point.
The 80s. Yeah.
Let's assume you're in hi Martha, let's assume your zip code has your kids going to a underachieving public school for whatever reason. And you hear, like we're hearing in Providence today, well, we've put together this commission. Let's say you have a 5th grade student, and maybe a 7th grade student, and maybe a 2nd grade student. It's got to be 5 to 10 years before our reforms take effect. Now, you as a parent, is that acceptable to you? Your kids' educational careers are over at that point in time, and maybe even their whole economic future. So we position school choice until public schools are up to par. We need to give parents an escape route because they cannot afford to wait 5, 10 years for vague promises of reform. Louise, comment on that.
I feel that if that were the situation that I were in, I would somehow move my child into a parochial school, most likely. And maybe there would be, if it wasn't coming from a town, maybe the help would come from the church, or maybe I would homeschool. Because I think that maybe the public schools would wake up if they started losing enough people.
Yeah, a little competition doesn't hurt, does it?
No, get some teachers out of there that you need to get out of there. And I know that there are lots of other ramifications, because I looked at a million and I went, whoa, I thought this was just picking a high school like
Yeah.
I had to do, because I was in a small town. But you could go to a public, a Catholic, and if you want to kick in more money, you could go to St. George's or the Portsmouth Priory, like it was just how much money your family had.
Let me throw
Well,
a wrench
so
into this.
let's follow up with
Throw a
Jack
wrench
on that.
into this, Mike.
Oh.
Let me throw a wrench into this, Mike. I'm in the city of Providence, and I've got a child that I'm not happy with going to public school. So I see a charter school A down the street. I want my kid to go there. And by the way, this is probably going to be a lottery.
Yep.
So it's going to be a lottery. So my kid is not chosen for that school. So I go to charter school B, which is my second choice. And that one, suddenly I find out that school is filled. What do I do? What do I do with my kid after that? Do I become a disappointed parent? The answer is not throwing, the answer is to continue to support charter schools, but not necessarily on this global arena that you're talking about. The answer is still fixing what's broken. And fixing what's broken is
But
not.
what do we do in the near term? They've been trying to fix stuff for 20 years and nothing happens, Bill. Jack, let me ask Jack this. Jack, you're right. You were a beneficiary of a kind of natural school choice because of the geographic situation where you grew up in rural Vermont. But kind of to Louise's point, not every parent has the ability to put some money towards private school. Not every parent has the ability to move to a different school district. Not every parent, as Bill just mentioned, will be lucky enough to win a lottery, and not every parent can afford to stay out of work and homeschool. So you basically lived it. The beneficiary was you get to choose whatever school you go to and the money follows you. Is that pretty much the way it worked out for you in Vermont?
Yeah, yeah. And my problem is I have a very low opinion of public schools. I cannot believe that they're not accountable for anything. They're wasteful. I could cut the budget of any school going 50% because there's so much waste. There's no accountability. And the teachers, I'm not over impressed with most of the teachers. And so I would do anything I could to get them out of a regular school.
Now, to Bill's point, I think Bill brought up an interesting point about, we talked off air, and I think you mentioned it last show. What if there's a radical Islam school out there, private school that supports killing Americans, something like that. I don't know. Again, I think that depending on how you write the law, schools are accredited. Private schools are accredited by the state, just like public schools are. So I think you could only spend the money at an accredited school, even if it was a private or parochial school. So I think there's a way to address that very legitimate concern of yours, Bill. I think that is a legitimate concern, but I think a well-crafted law could overcome that part of it. All right, what other aspects of school choice do we want to discuss? We only got about 3 or 4 minutes left.
I think the application process, I think that's a big sticking point too. The application process. How do you move a student from public ed to private ed or a charter school of some sort? And I think the devil is in the details. I think what's going on right now, Michael, with RIDE, I think it's well intended. I think some of it is well intended. We want to up the level of student participation and student learning, but how we go about it is two different things. We may have been working at it for 20 years, but I tell you what, boy, we've done a lousy job in 20 years. Let's stop. Let's fix this thing now.
Louise, one of the concerns we've heard from, for instance, minority advocates. Well, if we put school choice in, I fear that a lot of children who don't have mothers and fathers, or maybe one or both of their parents are in jail or incarcerated, they may not become aware of this school choice option. They may not, I thought it was kind of degrading, but they've even told me, well, they might not even be able to fill out an application form. So therefore, we're seeing that probably only, middle class white kids will be able to take advantage of school choice options. And just because, and I didn't buy the argument, but it's the argument that's out there. Do you buy the fact that minority kids and minority families are not even capable of understanding and completing an application?
I don't think so, because if a child knows enough to bring home a permission slip or something, somebody hopefully in his grandmother or his aunt or the next door neighbor might be able to read it for him. I think that's kind of dramatic in saying that they don't have the wherewithal to even know what's going on. There's always somebody within the community that's looking out for that person.
Yeah, you're right. There are advocacy groups that kind of fill in and help. You're right. You are absolutely right about that. A lot of nonprofit groups help out with that. Jack, why don't you wrap it up? Well, I mean, we're talking about school choice only because the state of education in this state is in such horrid shape. Why do you believe that is? Do you believe there's not enough money? Do you believe there's not enough quality teachers or teachers of the right racial background to match up with student backgrounds? Or do you believe we've got a corrupt curriculum we're teaching kids? What do you think is the problem with education in our state, Jack?
Well, you're gonna get me in trouble here. I think my thing is, if you think about it, the teachers aren't in the real world. If you think about it, someone goes to school, then they go to college, right from high school, they go right to college. They may have taken a couple teaching courses, and now all of a sudden they're a teacher. They've never really worked. But they don't know, as soon as they sign a teaching contract, they got it made. They're not in the real world anymore. They don't have to worry about promotions or the raisins. They got their insurance paid for, the medical, dental. They get a retirement thing. They get all kind of benefits that a normal person doesn't have. They work, what, 180 days a year or something? So, and you can't fire a teacher. I mean, at my career,
Very hard, yes.
I got laid off twice at Christmas time, and then I got fired once. And my wife was pregnant and was going to have a baby in 2 weeks, so I get fired.
Yeah.
You know, it's the real world.
Yeah, what happened today with teachers? Yeah.
The teachers don't have to produce anything. They just sit there and do whatever.
All right, 30 seconds each. Louise, what do you think the major problem with education in our state is? Why? Why do we have such a problem?
I think we're probably catering too much to special people, and we're not teaching the basics of what should be taught in the school as I was.
Do you think it's a curriculum focus?
I think it's curriculum.
Okay, Bill, what is your ideas on that?
In the first position, I think unions are the bane of our schools today. I think there are many good teachers out there who want to do the right thing, but are prevented from doing so by the school administration and the unions. So I think if we're going to start anywhere, I would say we can't eliminate unions. That's unconstitutional. We can't do that. We have to have more performance-based teaching, not this because you're tenured there for 5 years, you're untouchable. That's baloney.
Yeah, seniority. Yeah.
Just like Jack got laid off or fired for non-performance or whatever. I think teachers ought to be doing the same thing.
All right. Well, on that last point, we all agree. You were all right. You all brought up different reasons, fundamental reasons why education is suffering in this state. And you can see what a big task it is to try to fix all that. Well, Bill and Louise and Jack, we thank you for your time today. We wish you a really good meeting today. And when we come back to you in 2 weeks, I hope you guys will have talked about our report we just issued today on the bogus social studies standards put forth by our own Department of Education. I'd like to get your feedback on that. So thank you to our Boomer Zoomers from the Charlestown Senior Center. Have a great meeting, ladies and gents.
Thank you.
See you, Mike. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in today on this Thursday. Again, a big focus today on education. And for the In the Dugout, Mike Stenhouse signing out. See you next game.